Hello, and welcome to A Peace in Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Gorley, and this is the podcast where you get to listen to the rather lovely young adult novel of Peace and Precipitation, chapter by chapter, episode by episode. And then after that, you get to hear a little bit of insight, a little insider information from the rather witty and urbane author himself. So, it'll be good. But if you're not really interested in that thing, you can just go to the next episode. You don't have to listen to the commentary, the thoughts. You can just kind of listen to the audiobook and go on to the next chapter. So in today's chapter, chapter 9, we have a little bit of insight into Jen, again, feeling a little bit left out. So she has a best friend that has been recently hanging out, sometimes as freshmen do, specifically with other freshmen, and kind of meeting some new friends, new people, new circles of friends, and Jen is sort of feeling left out and gone from there. So I think that's something that I think we can all relate to from time to time, of just feeling that we're the odd person out, the odd man out, if you will. And I think that's just something that I think all of us can relate to, or at least I can, anyways. You know, I'm the one that sucks. People don't like. No, I'm just kidding. Not usually, but it's happened to me as well. I've had times where I felt like I was the person left out before. I think that's just a natural human thing. So, without further ado, we are going to start chapter 9. It was Friday, and Morgan was going out with Zoe Davidson again. This time, they were going to the movies to meet up with Morgan's new crush, Garrett, and his friends. Morgan almost sounded as if she wanted Jen to come, until she added that it was all Zoe's friends, and it was sort of a couples thing. Jen thought that wasn't really true, since two of the sets of friends weren't actually together, although Morgan definitely wouldn't be opposed to being more than friends with Garrett. Jen didn't have the money to go to the movies, and she knew that she wasn't invited. Situations like this made Jen wonder what it would be like to be popular and never have problems with money. Boredom and depression followed. Jen found little relief from the melancholy she felt in her heart. It was as though everything good from her life was sucked out. Morgan was one of the few bright spots in her life, and now Zoe seemed to have taken that away. Jen found it difficult not to despise Zoe. Zoe was the friend Jen always wanted to be for Morgan. Zoe was pretty, funny, and knew lots of boys. Zoe was more like Morgan than Jen was. Zoe always had money to hang out. Zoe's complete with working phone could text Morgan at a moment's notice, whereas Morgan had to wait for Jen to be in the right spot in her house so that her 5-year-old iPod Touch could pick up the neighbor's Wi-Fi. Morgan could call Zoe and not have to make small talk with her annoying mom on a landline before conversing. Zoe could answer a TikTok, Instagram, or Snapchat message without waiting for her old, slow computer or iPod Touch to load up. But most of all, Jen felt that Zoe was so cool. Way cooler than she was. Zoe was the newer, prettier, updated version of Jen. As heartbreaking as it was, Jen decided that Zoe was probably a better friend to Morgan than she could ever be. What could she possibly offer Morgan? Maybe half a lifetime of memories, at least since 3rd grade? But this was high school now. No one wants to talk about how they peed in the pool when they were 9 because they drank too much Kool-Aid. Jen awoke Saturday morning, a little later than she'd intended. The alarm clock read 10:30. Elena usually would not let Jen sleep past 8:30 on the weekends. But with Lena working a Saturday at her job at the Williamstown Library, Jen's eyes got to rest an extra couple hours. Even with the extra rest, Jen felt exhausted. She woke up with a blah feeling. Jen couldn't decide if she felt empty, hurt, or just bored. Jen couldn't think of any specific reasons why she felt this way. Yes, there was Morgan and Zoe, the school play, and the fact that she did not have many friends, but those things usually didn't get her down this much. Jen stepped down, placing her left foot directly on Fifi's tail, which was lying as Fifi was next to Jen's bed. Fifi hissed and ran away. "You're lucky it wasn't your face, you stupid cat," Jen growled with extra half-awake grumpiness. Jen opened the Venetian blinds in her room. Still raining. Jen threw on her pink Old Navy flip-flops and walked downstairs. She dragged her feet across the carpet, adding new accompaniment to the snapping of the pink poly foam smacking her heels with every step. Ronnie's video game was still much louder and could be heard from the stairs to the kitchen. Even more evidence of Ronnie's consciousness was the layer of granulated sugar on the counter between the glass sugar shaker with the blue metal top and the box of Lucky Charms cereal. Ronnie was the only person that Jen had ever met that thought Lucky Charms didn't have enough sugar in it already. Ronnie would add extra sugar to Lucky Charms when Lena was gone. If she was present, Lena would never let Ronnie get away with that, something that Ronnie was well aware of. "You're gonna rot your teeth out, Ronnie." "No, I'm not." "You better clean this crap up here and brush your teeth or I'm telling Mom." "I'll tell her you said the word crap." "You just said the word too, just now. I'll tell her you said it too." "Nuh-uh, I only said it 'cause you said it." "You still said it, and I'll tell Mom if you tell me, and I'll tell her about the cereal." "Jen." "Seriously, Ronnie, you need to clean up this mess before she gets here, or I won't have to tell her. She'll see for herself. And brush your teeth." "Okay." Jen shook her head. Her mom was ridiculous about words like crap and sucks and shut up. If she had only heard for a second how kids talk at school, she'd have a heart attack. Jen took her favorite "Ya Jamaican Me Crazy" mug, a gift from Aunt Julie's last vacation, out of the cupboard, added water, microwaved it for exactly 2 minutes, squeezed a little honey, and dropped a bag of tea. Lemon Zinger was the flavor of the day. She sat at the dining room table, by the window, staring, sipping, watching the rainwater collect on a leaf of a small tree in the backyard. It filled, tipped, and emptied. 6 to 8 seconds was the cycle. Jen must have watched it 10 times before she caught her reflection in the glass. She couldn't see any details of her face clearly, only the groups of shapes that outlined her head. Why couldn't I be prettier? If I were prettier, boys would like me. If I were prettier, I would make friends easier. If I were prettier, I would almost automatically be cooler. Popular boys would talk to me. Morgan would like me more. We would have more things in common. We could talk about the boys that like us. No wonder Morgan likes Zoe more. Zoe's so pretty. Morgan has a lot more in common with Zoe than me. Jen's eyes shifted back to the leaf. She sipped the hot, sweet, and sour tea, holding it in her mouth for a moment, letting her tongue taste and feel every drop before swallowing. Jen could not remember the last time she felt happy. Okay, she really thought about it. It hadn't been that long. But Jen was not in the mood to remember that. Jen knew her life could always be worse, but there was a little bit of solace when she dove into her feelings and reveled in her sadness. She stared out at the puddles collecting in her worn, uneven, and broken asphalt driveway. Part of Jen wanted to go out and sit in the rain and let the chilly drops wash the emptiness from her. But what happens if emptiness is washed away, she thought. What would replace it? More emptiness was the only thing that Jen could think of. As she sat watching the rain, waiting for Lena to return with the Agatha Christie novel she had promised to bring, the phone rang. "Hello?" "Jen, hey, what's up?" "Oh, hey, Morgan," Jen answered, surprised by Morgan's voice. "Jen, you sound surprised to hear from me." "Oh, yeah, well, no, yeah. Jen, I know I've been spending a lot of time with Zoe, but we're still like best friends." As encouraging it was to hear from Morgan, part of Jen cringed when she heard the word "like" next to the term best friends. A couple months ago, that word "like" would never have been next to the words best friends. Jen knew she was just being overly critical, but she couldn't help but dwell on that word longer than she should have in the middle of the conversation. When Jen didn't respond, Morgan said, Jen, hello?" "Okay, Jen, don't let on to the fact that you're upset." Yeah, we are. Who else would have put up with your BS?" Jen said in a tone that was sufficiently sassy. Jen was proud of her good cover. "Ha, yeah. Yeah, you probably put up more than the average person. But I've had to put up with your intolerable taste in boys. Philip, James, anyone? And have you seen the way you pour a cup of tea? Where can a girl find proper service these days?" Morgan said, switching to her best English accent to refer to the infamous tea party pouring debacle involving a proper Pride and Prejudice inspired Jen and Morgan 6th grade tea party, and a distracted Jen missing the teacup completely and pouring hot tea directly into Morgan's lap. Jen laughed so hard she almost snorted. Sorry, I was trying to snort there. Snorted, causing Morgan to quip. Did you just snort? OMG, who does that? Ha, okay, Morgan, you're usually the one that snorts. I don't know what you're talking about, Morgan answered with fake assurance. Still laughing, Jen said, and Philip James, ew. I said he looked cute one time when I saw him from behind wearing a baseball cap. I could barely see his face. Jen, don't deny your true love. Okay, whatever. Morgan, I miss you. We need to hang out soon. Yeah, we should. How about tonight? I can't. Sorry. I promised Zoe that I'd hang out with her at the mall. Her mom's like trying to fix her up with some kid. He's like the one like the kid of one of her mom's friends. I would kill my mom if she ever tried to fix me up with someone. Yeah, so I promised I'd be there to make sure he wasn't a total creeper. Yeah, that's cool. I understand, Jen said, trying to sound cool with it. She then added, hey, what happened with you guys going to the movies with Garrett and his friends? Oh, Garrett's friend got in trouble for smoking weed, so they bailed on us. It was lame, so Zoe and I just hung out. Crazy, Jen responded, suddenly feeling very distant to Morgan. Definitely. Oh, okay, shoot. Hey, Jen, I gotta go. It's Zoe. I gotta see where we're meeting tonight. I'll call you right back. Morgan called back 10 minutes later and talked for a few more minutes. Although Morgan wasn't able to hang out with Jen, it was nice to catch up with her. Jen had finally gotten the chance to tell Morgan about her seemingly successful audition. Morgan started chanting, Jenny, Jenny, Jenny. Jen smiled over the phone. It felt so nice to know that someone cared and was proud of her. Jen would probably find out if she made a play the next day. Reluctant to make a big deal about it, though, she hadn't told Lena yet. However, after her conversation with Morgan and how generally nice it felt to have someone proud of her, she decided to tell her mom about her possibly good news. Upon hearing the news, Lena burst into tears and hugged Jen and kept repeating, I'm so proud of you, Jenny. I'm so proud of you, Jenny. I could have never done anything like that. I'm so proud of you. Jen smiled. And that was chapter 9. All right, so obviously we see a couple things going on here. We see, Jen just being kind of down about the fact that she was, feeling like she's just distancing herself from her friends and just the feeling of being left out. She had been feeling left out for a while. The last few weeks with, with Morgan's new friend Zoe, and just not be able to hang out with Morgan, which was something they did just about every week in the summertime. So they were, all of a sudden, things were switching like that. And then just the sadness that kind of went with that. You can see one of the things you could see is just the depression that's sometimes going with just feeling alone. It's so easy to feel like so sad when you're like not spending those time with other people. Humans are like wolves in a way, like we're pack animals. Like we're not, like, yes, you can be the lone wolf somewhere, maybe, but really people are happier and healthier when they are in packs, when they have like people around, when they have family and friends that can be like family. And when you're isolated, that's usually the times where you just really, anyone is like really sad. So Jen just was getting to feel like really isolated, and then her just sitting in sad and being sad. It's probably one of my favorites parts of this chapter, of just like staring out the window, like at the rain that's falling, and her just drinking a cup of tea and just being just kind of alone with her thoughts, and her, in this case, alone with her like sadness. And I feel like that's just a really normal thing, and that's something that all of us feel at some point And, it's almost as she was staring at the precipitation. Maybe not feeling peace yet, but just staring at the precipitation. Almost like foreshadowing of things that could be to come or something. I don't know. We'll see. But nonetheless, yeah, she was outside, just kind of like staring out the window, zoning out and just feeling it. And then she was almost kind of interesting. She was like surprised that her friend called her because she was so used to not spending time with her friend, not being around for her friend and being left out, that she was surprised by it. And I think it was kind of like, oh, I guess we are still kind of friends. Like, I haven't like talked to you in like a couple weeks and stuff like that. And then just, I think, in this modern day and age, I think in some ways, students are just so reliant on like their phones and having like a telephone to like, having like social media to like interact with each other, at least like texting. A lot of parents are starting to kind of, realize that social media is not a healthy thing for students. I've heard that social media, I've heard by a couple psychologists now, like completely different ones, like in different backgrounds and stuff, just say that social media should not even be allowed at all for any kids until they're like a junior in high school. That especially social media during middle school is like really bad for students because they just can't emotionally like fathom just having, just the whole crazy interaction that even adults struggle with. It's so easy to compare yourself to other people, and that's part of the thing that Jen is struggling with in this chapter. She is struggling with comparing herself to Zoe Davidson. Even that whole thing where she's like, oh, if only I was as pretty as Zoe Davidson or whatever, and oh, I'm just not as good as her, and she has money and I don't, she has a phone, I don't. And the reality is that Jen doesn't even really know Zoe Davidson that much. And Zoe might have her own problems and might have a family background much worse than Jen, but Jen doesn't really know that. And that's a problem that, that's just that what, you've heard it called the comparison trap. It's so easy to get trapped in that idea of like, oh my gosh, my life is never as good as this. And even as adults, we're like, kind of look, we're like, oh my gosh, look at that family over there. Look at that couple over there. They just seem so happy and they're just so happy and everything's wonderful and perfect in their lives and their children are perfect. And it's so easy to like fall into that kind of thing. It's just, you want to compare yourself, but you're not comparing real apples to apples. You're comparing these like surface pictures. You're seeing the pictures, the greatest hits of the highlights of their lives, and not the day-to-day lives where it's going really poorly. People don't often, post about how, bad their marriage is going or how sad they are. That, I guess they do sometimes, I guess, but for the most part, really kind of people keep it to themselves, and most people just only post like the best things in their lives and stuff, kind of thing. So you compare yourself to the best parts of someone else's life, but not the other things. And I've just seen so many times in my life and the people around me is that you just never know what people are going on. And I remember one time when I was, I don't know, it's probably like early 20s or whatever. I was working at this restaurant, and I was working at this restaurant. I was a server, and this one server was just always so happy-go-lucky all the time. And I knew this girl. She was sort of like a friend of mine from other places and everything. And I remember just like she was almost like annoying. Like she was always happy. Like, oh, okay, you never had a bad day in your life. But then as I came to talk to her and like we had like mutual friends, it turned out she had like all this crazy stuff happen in her lives. Like she was like horribly in these horrible situations and like just went through these terrible, terrible things. And she just had a really, really like rough life. But like you would have never known it from like talking to her. And it really just kind of blew me away. Like, wow, I can't believe all that stuff happened to like this girl. Like, because had you just met her, you would never think all this crazy stuff happened to her and stuff like that. And, it's just so easy to, compare yourself to other people when in actuality you have no idea what's going on in their lives. And I think that's just a normal thing that all of us can go through, and that Jen was kind of going through in this life, comparing herself to, Zoe's life. And maybe Zoe's life really is easier and better. And, this is just, Jen's better in some ways and this is sort of just Jen's struggles. Sometimes people don't go through as many things, or I think everyone goes through difficult things at times of life, but maybe that can hit at different times, right? Maybe some people's lives are easy for a certain season, and then they, become very difficult, or, who knows? Everyone's life's different and everything. So the moral of that story and that thing is to not compare yourself to other people. So, but yes, so that's pretty much the end of chapter 9. And we're going to be moving on to chapter 10, where Jen's first play practice. And we'll have to see what happens then. Okay, first play practice. So let's see how it goes. It might not go well. We'll see next chapter. But it'll be interesting to see. And I hope you're enjoying listening to these audiobooks, and even a little commentary. And again, if you're over the commentary, go ahead and skip the next episode. Listen to hopefully this book is my own opinion of the book, and a lot of other people that read it have had the same idea. I just think the book starts a little slow, but keeps getting better and better. So if you're in this far and you're still listening, you need to keep listening, because it gets better still. I know it's hard to imagine, but it gets better still. But no, it does get better. So I think you guys will like it. So thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.